Download links to the files created in this video are in the description. In my previous videos, I showed how to create a Celtic Triskelion using different methods. The one on the left was made using the Create Spirals tool, and the one on the right was made using the Create Circles and Ellipses tool. To see how each of these was made, you can check out my previous videos in the playlist linked below. In this video, I'm going to show how to create these Celtic Triskelion-like shapes. I'm going to start with this one on the left, which has 4 arms and a square in the middle. So let's get started. We'll start with a spiral. So I've got a spiral that I created in the previous video. I'm going to use that. Let me just press 3 to zoom into the spiral. So this is the spiral we're going to be using for the video. First we'll need to create a square. So let's come to the Create Rectangles and Squares tool. Click and drag while holding the Control key to create a square with a ratio of 1:1. Then let's come to Object, Fill and Stroke. Come to Stroke Style and make sure the units are in pixels, and we'll give it a stroke width of 10 pixels. Next, let's come to the Select and Transform tool. Make sure you've got proportional scaling locked and you've disabled proportional scaling for the stroke width. So disable the setting that says when scaling objects, scale the stroke width by the same proportion. Disable that. Then let's come to the width and height of the square and change the width to 40 pixels. Next, let's click on the square a second time to show the rotation handles. Then let's click and drag the rotation handle. The rotation handle is these curved arrows at the corners. Click and drag on it and press and hold the Control key and snap it at 45 degrees. Like that. Next we're going to come to our spiral. Click and drag over it. Sorry, I had forgotten to group the arcs that make the spiral together. I'm going to press Ctrl G to group them together. And then I want to come and snap the spiral to the square. Now it's not lining up to the square properly, so I'm going to rotate it. So click on the spiral, then click on it again to show the rotation handles, and click and drag the rotation handle. Press Ctrl to snap it, and once it's in line with the corner you can let go, and then click and drag to snap it onto the square. And for snapping, make sure that you've got snapping enabled and you've got snap nodes, paths and handles, snap cusp nodes including rectangle corners, and snap smooth nodes including quadrant points of ellipses. Next, let's zoom out a bit and let's press Ctrl D to duplicate the spiral. And let's come to the toolbar for the Select and Transform tool and click on the Rotate Selections by 90 degrees clockwise once. So we're clicking this once, and then come and click and drag the spiral and snap it on. Ctrl D to duplicate it again, rotate it by 90 degrees clockwise, click and drag, snap it on, Ctrl D, rotate and snap it on. And that's our first shape. Let's just compare it with the previous one that I created. I didn't follow the exact same process, but it should be similar. I'm gonna press Ctrl Shift G to ungroup them and then go to path, stroke to path, and then path union to join everything together. And let's come back here and see how it compares to the one I previously created. They look pretty similar. So yeah, that's the first shape done. And oops, I forgot to leave a copy of my spiral, so I'm just going to press Ctrl Z a few times. And let's take this spiral and press Ctrl C to copy it, or right click and copy, then Ctrl Z, and let's snap it on there. Or let's just duplicate it, Ctrl D to duplicate it and bring it to the side, and then let's click and drag over all of these, Ctrl Shift G to ungroup them again, and then come to path, stroke to path, and then path union. Alright, we fixed that. Sorry about that. Let's come to this shape. So I'm going to create an arm which is about, let's say, 40 pixels also. So let's come to the Bezier tool, click anywhere on the canvas, press the Ctrl key to snap it onto the horizontal, then click anywhere on the side and press Enter to create your stroke. Then come to the Select and Transform Objects tool, and let's set the width to 40. Will 40 be enough? Let's make it 50. 40 won't be enough. Let's make it 50. And then on the stroke style, let's put 10 pixels for the stroke width. And then Control and scroll to zoom in. And let's click on the stroke one more time to show the rotation handles. And click and drag while pressing Control and rotate it, in this case by about 30 degrees. And then let's click and drag and snap it on to the spiral. Oh, I'll need to rotate it a bit more. So let's rotate, and that should be the right angle. Then snap it on, then click and drag over all of these. Press Ctrl D to duplicate, and then click and drag to the side. Click on it again to show the rotation handles. And in fact, no, we don't need the rotation handles. We'll just go to the Select and Transform toolbar and rotate by 90 degrees clockwise. And then I'll still need to come and drag the stroke and then the spiral together. And then shift and select both of these. Control G to group them together so that it's easier to rotate them. And then Control D to duplicate. Then come to the toolbar and rotate by 90 degrees. Click and drag. Control D. Rotate by 90 degrees. Snap on. And that's a four-armed shape. So I will go together with this one. And then now we've got two more shapes left. Let's do this one. So let's come here and Control Shift G to ungroup them. Then I want to duplicate the spiral. Let's duplicate this one. Control D to duplicate that one. Oh, and also one of the arms. Ctrl D to duplicate that and bring it here. So let's work with the arm only. Let's go to Object and Transform. The Transform menu is already here. Let's close the Fill and Stroke. And under the Transform menu, go to Rotate and let's enter the value 72 for the rotation angle. Then let's come to our stroke and click on it again to show the rotation handles, and then come and click and drag the rotation crosshair until it snaps onto the node at the end of the stroke. In order to do this, you'll need to have this option enabled, Snap Items to Rotation Center, along with the Snap to Smooth Nodes and Snap to Cusp Nodes. So once you've snapped the rotation center onto the node at the end there, then let's come to the rotation transformation here, and we've got one stroke, so I'm going to press Ctrl D to duplicate it, then click Apply to rotate the duplicate, then press Ctrl D to duplicate again, Apply, Ctrl D, Apply, and Ctrl D one more time, Apply. And this is the shape we'll get. We get like a star shape. And then I'm going to snap the spiral onto it. And it looks like the strokes are too short, so let's click and drag over all of them. And then click and drag while pressing Ctrl to enlarge them a bit. That should do. Then click and drag the spiral onto there, Ctrl D to duplicate it, and then let's rotate it by 72 degrees and click and drag it onto here, Ctrl D, duplicate, rotate by 72, click, snap it on, Ctrl D, rotate, snap it on, Ctrl D, rotate it, and snap it on. And that's our second shape from here. So that's this shape. And our last shape, we'll need a pentagon. So I'm going to use the width of this line as a guide, which is about 80 millimeters. Alright, so let's come to create stars and polygons, and then create a regular polygon with 5 corners and rounded 0, randomized 0. So let's come to the canvas, click and drag while holding the Control key. Why is it giving me a triangle? Let's try that again. Come here, enter 5 corners and click and drag while pressing Control and make the angle 90 degrees. Will that work? 90 degrees, and let's make the pentagon a little bit smaller. You want it to be how big? About this size should do. And then let's press Ctrl D to duplicate the spiral, Ctrl D, let's come here and we're gonna need to figure out the angle. So we'll start here at the top left and click on the spiral again. Click and drag the rotation handle while pressing Ctrl. And then once it's in line with the bottom of the top of the pentagon, then click and drag and snap it on. And let's click the pentagon. We're gonna need some nodes there. So let's go to Path, Object to Path, so that we can get the corner nodes, these corner nodes. Let's switch to the Select and Transform tool, click on the spiral, press Ctrl D to duplicate it, and rotate it by 72 degrees. And then click and drag and snap it on. Ctrl D, rotate, snap it on. Ctrl D, rotate, snap it on. Ctrl D, rotate, and snap it on. And that's our 5-pointed or 5-armed Triskelion-like shape. Let's Ctrl G to group them together, and I'll rotate it by 180 degrees so that it looks almost exactly like the one above. And that's it. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 Triskelion-like shapes. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. And links to this file are in the description. And stay tuned for more videos.